nothing left for me to hate, so I can lay me down. My brothers on the ground, I bled today until Coyote comes to raise me up and carries me.
Hello, welcome, good evening, or if you're listening to this on podcast, good morning, afternoon, or whenever you're listening to this. It is the Scottish Rugby podcast from the Scottish Rugby blog. As you'll no doubt be able to tell, it's myself, John Anderson, in the hot seat once again. And tonight we've got a fairly action-packed agenda, as is the wanton way of Scottish rugby right now. Joining me for this odyssey is none other than Craig Manson. Good to have you along, Craig. How are you?
How you doing? I'm very well, thank you very much. Just all set for oh my goodness, Gammy's the right person to speak about this. I'm sure there was a kids TV with an Odyssey involved in it somewhere. I was about to try and bring it out there, but
yeah.
I'm sure it was Ulysses. Was it not Ulysses?
I mean, that was an Odyssey. I believe that was part of the Odyssey kind of fables, wasn't it? But
similar. Anyway,
yeah. We digress very slightly, of course, but
so.
It's not great to have you along, Craig, and I'm doing very well, thank you, buddy. I've just about thawed out from the weekend, so it got quite nippy towards the end of end of the afternoon. But yeah, we've got, as I said, we've got an action-packed agenda ahead. We are going to be talking about the Fiji game. We're going to be talking about some ins and outs in the squad, and we'll have a wee look at what is to come from the All Blacks. Obviously, if you're listening to us and you've stumbled upon us, welcome. You can get over to scottishrugbyblog.co.uk. You'll see at the bottom there, unless you're listening back. You can get the latest news, views of Scottish rugby. There's some amazing writers in there, so please go and check that out. If you do like what you hear as well and you want to support the podcast further, we do have a Patreon account. You can head over to Scottish Rugby Podcast on Patreon, and for £3 a month, you can get exclusive content and our Hands in the Ruck section, which always around this time of year promises to be a barnstormer. So, yeah, £3 a month gets you in there. I have been remiss, I must admit, because if you actually pay the extra money, if you pay £5 a month to get yourself into the Dougie Donnelly suite, I should really read your name out on the podcast. Now, I've been quite remiss, and I haven't checked any new members on but we have had a few new Patreons join us. So I promise, fingers crossed, cross my heart, all that jazz. I will dig out a list of yous, and I'll give you a wee shout out on the podcast. Unless you're watching right now, if you're watching and you are a new Patreon and you want to get a shout out, pop a wee comment, and we'll give you a wee name check. I think that's the... That was almost quite professional there, Craig. Almost.
I was staggered.
Let's park that professionalism and let's get back into right. Let us start with the Fiji game, shall we? Let's start there, because obviously there's other news to come to. So I'm going to go chronologically. Let's go chronologically. Okay. Right. Okay. So we'll start with the Fiji game. Myself and Johnny were there. Crowd of 58,000 when all the pointers were suggesting that nobody was going to turn up, train strikes and what have you. What was your initial? What was your overall feelings of the game, Craig? You've obviously watched it.
Yeah, I was thoroughly disappointed, to be perfectly honest. I just overall. If you showed me that backline, well, in fact, we did. We discussed the backline before before the game on our wee chat that we have, and the backline was stellar. And I was, the only person missing. There was a person missing, and obviously we're going to talk about that. But it was a stellar looking backline, and we seemed a bit. Well, not a bit. We were toothless in the first half. And again, the penalty count started to ramp up as well, and then we finally got ourselves into gear. And I have to say, I always kind of, you talk about it regularly, and I always kind of poo-poo it to bring in a word from words from Blackadder.
A technical term here.
Yes, I poo-poo the poo-poo. Don't let him poo-poo. If you have poo-poo that poo-poos in the poo-poo the poo-poo, then you have poo-poo everywhere. So yeah, okay, sorry, that was Blackadder.
Back on point.
Back on point. I always felt that, when you say, playing professional rugby is fine, but once you step up to international, it's a different thing altogether. And I've always been one of those. Is it really? But Adams Hastings has been playing absolutely phenomenal for his club. So is Blair Kinghorn, and both of them looked toothless. Adam Hastings made a series of mistakes, as well as, for me, a couple of kicking decisions that were just off. Yes. Yeah. And then the mistake he made ended up with him coming off, because he just ran fully without passing the ball further on down the line, ran straight into injury. So it was a difficult one, and so for me, we talk about this all the time. We've been talking about this, how the backline isn't being used to the way it should be being used, and that seemed to be again, another thing that we would probably point at from this game.
I think I absolutely agree, Craig. I think first half in particular, it was really desperate. Really, really desperately, as bad as I've seen Scotland in a long time. And I agree. I think Adam Hastings' kicking in particular, there was a couple of moments where he was kind of almost forced into silly kicks that then, well, there was one that kind of went long and he went behind the goal and then he kicked it and it brought pressure straight back onto Scotland, and it was Darcy Graham and Ali Price marking what can only be described as a rhinoceros on the wing. It was, probably the same weight as both of them combined, and they got skittled. Of course they did, and it just continued to build pressure. I do think Hastings wasn't helped, and this might be controversial for a few people, but Cam Redpath was really poor.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, Johnny described it in the stand as he's playing like he's 4 stone heavier than he is. I agree. I think he looked rusty, but he shouldn't. I mean, I get first international game in a long time, but he shouldn't necessarily look rusty, and he has been playing club games. So I thought Redpath was poor. I know people have given Chris Harris stick for the attack not functioning, which seems like an old trope to me. I think there was a couple of moves that Harris was involved in that I don't necessarily think were his fault. I think the distribution around him was pretty poor. But yeah, really, really toothless. Toothless is the exact word I would have used, Craig. It's a really kind of desperate performance. And then you compare it, particularly in that first half, to our opponents, who just looked absolutely up for it and looked desperate to run ball in from anywhere. But then they failed to convert as well. It was one of those games that just nobody seemed to convert.
Yeah, I just felt we've obviously worked on and bringing Richie Gray into the line-out. The line-out was very, very good. Our set pieces were very, very good. We worked well in the scrummage as well, especially in the second half. And Big Murphy Walker came on and did a great job as well. So Ewan Ashman again. I have to say, Ewan Ashman really, really looked strong, along with Suz. Rory Sutherland was absolutely on point, especially in the loose. So it was one of those situations where we've got all the component parts, and I've always resisted the calls and everyone yapping away about Townsend and this, that, and the other. But there's some sort of problem there, because the attack just does. The backline are not being used to their full effect, and I don't know whether it's Zonda or if it's Tooney that's causing the problem.
Yeah, well, I know Zonda's come in for a bit of stick this week, possibly finally reached. I know he was getting a wee bit of it during the Six Nations and that, but I think we might have finally reached the point where people are starting to question. People are questioning everything about that Scotland attack, because it was really poor. I mean, so what concerned me, right? So Darcy Graham got man of the match, and I questioned it at the time, because in the stadium didn't necessarily look. He didn't look that prevalent, but on a watch back, do you know what? He's in with a shout of it. I still personally wouldn't have given him it, but I think he was decent enough. That first 50 minutes or so, Duhan van der Merwe, what is going on there, Craig? Because he's not getting the ball. Mm-hmm. Why is Stuart Hogg not passing him the ball?
From what I can see, he's either it's either the play that they have, and they're expecting Stuart Hogg to make more yards through the tackle and then move it on to Van der Merwe. Or Stuart Hogg has decided that, well, I can hear many of our fellow Scottish rugby fans moaning already, saying, "Yeah, Stuart Hogg doesn't pass," and he is well known for going up blind alleyways and not losing the ball or not passing on, and it's totally. He seems to have lost this. He's the X factor that Stuart Hogg has always had. He seems to have lost it for some reason, and I don't know whether it's the players around him or whether he's decided that he's believed the hype, or whether he's just overcompensating on a regular basis and trying to play too much. But yeah, Duhan and Darcy need to be brought into this as much as we possibly can. And the problem I also have is, and not to keep talking away here because I'm not giving you a chance to talk, but the issue I have is that Ollie Smith, even though he had very, very good very good feet, does seem to be in a similar vein to Hogg, although doesn't want to pass the ball. Although he seems to enter contact a little bit quicker than Hogg does. Maybe he's just youthful exuberance.
Excitement of your first cap at Murrayfield, and you've got the try line beckoning, and maybe we've all been there. Not necessarily in that high stake a game, but we've all seen our name up in lights, and you can forgive the thing is, you can forgive a 20-year-old boy, which he is, with very little rugby under his belt, doing that. You can't really forgive your former captain, thrice British and Irish Lions tourist, record try scorer, doing that, because there was a number of occasions on the first half in particular that one pass out from Hogg, Duhan's making 40 metres, and the one time he did it, and it was in the set, he absolutely rumbled up the park, and it's like, it's becoming a real problem, because again, we were discussing afterwards that the thing Stuart Hogg used to do, yes, he had that blistering outside break, that absolute pace, and he would drag defenders onto him for that, and you were fine with him taking contact if he was dragging defenders with him. Now it's one defender goes with him because they know he's not going to pass. So they don't even have to drift. They just go out, and that's what there was actual space on the outside of him, and he just doesn't seem to want to pass. When we get to our Hands Are Up Patreon, I might give you some of our conspiracy theories from the weekend, which those of you who are on the Patreon would no doubt love to come and join. And please, if you've got any conspiracy theories of your own, bring them over. But what? Sorry.
No. Please carry on.
No, I was just going to say my personal highlight with Hogg before we move on was there was a moment in the first half where he caught a high ball, done his stupid wee juke, dancing about, and then went to go past someone, got absolutely creamed, and just threw the ball clean over his back to Darcy Graham. Like, just no, it wasn't even a no-look pass or anything. It was just like, I don't want it. And then Darcy Graham got absolutely ended because of it. And it's like, not good enough. He was exceptionally poor at the weekend, Hogg, and obviously he's had his little tantrum afterwards, which justifiably so. If people are, I would much rather people criticise his performance. Don't tag him in it. He knows he's played badly. Hence the obviously the throwing a hissy fit afterwards. But maybe we don't need to necessarily comment on his appearance when he's playing badly.
No,
or when he's playing well.
Well, the thing is, I've got to put my hands up and be guilty of. I think I said it once. I said I wasn't too happy with his hairstyle, but to be honest, it's one of those situations where I suppose, and I kind of get him. If he hears it constantly and nobody else is talking about anything else, then I can imagine it gets a little bit boring very, very quickly.
People would be talking about something else if he was playing well, though.
Yeah, well, there is that as well. What I would say, however, and what concerned me was when Jamie Ritchie was announced as captain. Instead of the full-throated support that you would expect to get, he did say he was disappointed not to be captain again. But I give Jamie's part of the leaders, was part of the leadership group when I was captain, and I support him. And I kind of thought that's, that was a little bit, that wasn't as classy as I expected it to be. I expected it to be, well done, really proud of you, Jamie. You've done, I'm fully behind you, and that's it,
And that's all it would take. And again, it's the stage management of all that we know as a professional athlete. We know Stuart Hogg's shown on so many occasions how much playing for his country means to him, and how much how important. And he obviously volunteered for the captaincy. Whether we think that was the right credentials to become captain or not is a completely different argument. But he wanted to be Scotland captain. He's wanted to represent Scotland. And to have that taken away from him, it doesn't take much for us to realise that he would be disappointed about that. Of course he would be disappointed. But he's a professional rugby player. He's got a job to do. And it would have been a really classy look for, just to, as you say, something along the lines of, you came into the team as a kid. I remember when you first came in, it's great. You were always a leader. You're now the captain of Scotland. Amazing stuff. Can't wait to play with you. And you've got my absolute support. It could have been managed really differently. And there's Harley. Harley's watching tonight. Good to see Harley saying here. Looks really bad in comparison to how Farrell and Biggar reacted to Laws and Tipuric becoming captains. That's exactly it. It's part of the game, and we've had high profile people over the years lose captaincies because a coach thinks they need to concentrate in their game or change things up a wee bit. And it's not, it's obviously an honour to captain your country, but it's not a be all and end all, I don't think. And Stuart Hogg has taken it quite badly. Actually.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is, and I actually haven't taken it as a slight on Jamie. I think there is a core, and this is, again, we're talking about maybe conspiracy theories, but
yes,
it's all starting to just all the little things. There's little things that you look around the whole squad that kind of point to the fact that the players don't fully support what's going on with the coaches. He's okay. Fair enough. I'd actually probably say that it's more about Hogg being hurt that he's not in the full limelight anymore. But I think there's a little bit of I'm disappointed not to be captain because it's been taken away from me, sort of thing. And then obviously the whole Finn thing, and then it just. Well, because if you just look at it, if you go back and you look at what Grant Gilchrist said about Jamie Ritchie taking over the captaincy, and that's someone who has been Scotland captain before, and was also in line, or there was questions, or there was talk about him coming back as captain. If you look at what he said and then you look at what Stuart Hogg said, it just stunk. I just thought it stunk a little bit.
It's not very classy. And you always know there's funny goings on in a camp when you've got players standing on their tiptoes on team photos. That's the true indicator that something's gone wrong.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, I tell you, I've not noticed that before, but Adam Hastings isn't a short boy anyway. By the way, he's quite a lanky big lad. But I am all in for that. That is grand work from Hastings. So no, I was impressed with that. The other thing that really you've mentioned him already, Richie Gray. Richie Gray for me had a really, really strong game. Again, dominant in the set piece, done what he had to do, but moments in the loose actually, which surprised me as well. He had a couple of really big rumbles as well, which I'm all in for. Big Richie on the carry, which was good. Obviously, his brother came off the bench, but I don't think necessarily, if we are thinking about a team for the weekend, if you're basing it on form, there's that word again, I don't think necessarily Johnny Gray can come straight back into that starting lineup, because I think Gilchrist was very good as well. He much. I'd criticise Gilchrist against Argentina, against Australia. I think Gilchrist was much better this week.
Well, you see, the thing is, this, with Gilchrist, you've got a very, very good line-out operator. The problem I have felt, or I have found, where it's been going, things have been going slightly wrong with Edinburgh, with Glasgow, and with Scotland. And what I think has found, sorry, somebody's decided to start printing something off on my printer here at the moment while I'm sitting in here. So there'll be a few odd noises. So
Gilco's hacked you. He's sending you.
I was going to say, I'm just thinking that's Stuart Hogg sending me a picture of himself again. I think what's happened is, I think and this is me going back to a whole thing about the whole Finn Russell, the whole Blair Kinghorn, the whole Adam Hastings, the whole this, that, and the other things that have been going on. We don't know what's going on in camp. We don't know what's going on at training. We don't know how these guys are being coached. It's quite obvious that Richie Gray has come under some stick for being old, past it, etc. for Glasgow. He played really well when he first came to Glasgow, and then all of a sudden he seemed to kind of drop off, and people were kind of pointing at him and saying, "Nah, this isn't good enough." He's gone into Scotland camp, and they're obviously, whoever is dealing with him. I think it's Scott Lawson. I think, if I'm right in saying that's the line-out coach. They seem to have sorted things out, and having him and Gilchrist both running the line out, it's why not take two heads are always better than one, So I think it really has worked, and as you say, you were right, and no disrespect to Darcy Graham, but for me, Richie was the man of the match for the weekend. I thought he played impressively well.
Yeah, I mean, my call for man of the match at weekends wasn't terribly popular, but I thought it was Chris Harris personally. I thought there was there's a passage of play, and it's Chris Harris doing things that those tiny little unseen things that we probably don't take. They're not the show-stopping massive smashes. They're not, running under the posts from 70 metres, but they're just as valuable, because he prevented what would have been try-scoring opportunities on 3 separate plays, like literally consecutively, because our outside backs were not coping with what was coming at them. And he does that. Squidge has talked about it a number of times that way. He almost steps out and then in to force the player to, basically he cuts off the passing channel and says, lob it over me if you can. If you got the skills, batter it over me. Good play. It's not the percentage play, but great play. Well done. But he's making them make that decision instantly, and they always have to come back inside where your forwards should be sitting to make a dominant tackle. Admittedly, you're up against trucks, so it's a bit of a challenge. But he done it on 3 separate plays, just one after the other, and pushed them back inside. And Scotland, I think, eventually turned the ball over. And it was just a masterclass in defence and how to deal with the situation that was arising out there, where if the ball goes wide, they are running over the top of Darcy for all the will in the world, or Ali Price, and they're skittling them. And that happens against Fiji. But he has done that, and he's controlled that defence so well. Problem for me is offsides. We are still giving away far too many offside penalties. And it's like the most brain dead penalty to give away. Like there's, we've said on this pod before, Craig, there's good penalties to give away. There's ones that you can kind of understand, if it's creating a bit of competition at breakdown, or you're causing a bit of niggle, or slowing a ball down when under your posts. There's good penalties to give away. Offside penalties in midfield. Any team with a competent kicker would have been out of sight at halftime against us. Which, coming on to kicking, how bad were Fiji's initial kicks? Oh my word!
Yeah, I have to say, they but if I remember correctly, their original 10 lost his passport in France, and so couldn't get into the country in time. So, fair play to the lad that stepped up and just got on with it. And I don't envy him his job, but I think I can only echo your points about Chris Harris. Watching Chris Harris with coach's eyes, I could just sit and watch his defensive work all day.
Yep.
And it's not a very popular thing to say, but the lads that I deal with, that I coach, get fed up with me saying it, but defence wins games. And he's so he is very where I think he's a little bit less effective as attack, but we've always got on with it because we've had a good 9, 10, 12, and then you'd have Hoggy coming in for as a second bite of the cherry, and then it goes out to the wing. And that's where, just as you say, everything seems slow at the weekend. The ball coming through from Price was slow.
Price was glacial. Glacial.
And so the ball coming through Hastings, who was just trying to find his feet, and unfortunately wasn't. And then Cammy Redpath. Now, and I want to give Cammy Redpath. I would start Cammy Redpath at the weekend.
I don't disagree. I think he should start. Yeah,
I think he's just needing to get back. Because he's only played, I think, for Bath about 3 or 4 times now. Since he's back from injury. So I think it's a bit of rustiness. But no, it's one of those situations we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, well, the discussion about the 12 shirt does bring us quite nicely on to let's segue in nicely. As if by magic, Adam Hastings took a hefty knock and was injured, and his injury has been dubbed to be series ending. He's off back to Gloucester to be assessed. So in the press conference after, when asked another direct question regarding the return of Finn Russell, Townsend stated, I think this is my highlight of Townsend's latest nonsense, though. He stated, Finn will be one of a number of 10s in consideration. I'm like, I think, at that point, could you just have got Townsend to list those 10s? Because I think he could have been fired on the spot for that, for gross misconduct.
Well, the thing is, it's you don't know how far down the line he is with discussions with Finn Smith. You don't know how far, because again, Finn Smith was playing at the weekend for Northampton, and the commentators were discussing all about whether he's going to get a chance to play for England, etc., etc. And he's such an amazing talent, and this, that, and the other. And I'm thinking, and then eventually they piped in, well, actually, he's actually qualified. He's Scots qualified as well, and so there's and that young man seems to be in a rather lovely pocket of form at the moment.
He played well at the weekend, I think he was player of the match at the weekend as well.
He was, yeah. So, you have him, you have obviously Ross Thompson, who was included in the squads, and there's, because I'm not one for taking anything away from Ross Thompson. I don't think he's ready for playing against the All Blacks, but
no, I don't think he is, Craig.
But I think he's if we're listening to what Tooney had said, then obviously you're thinking, well, it's going to have to be Thompson, or it's going to have to be Finn Smith, because if Finn Russell's no coming back, and Finn had already said he's no coming back, and this, that, and the other. But obviously, Finn coming back was no surprise to the Scottish Rugby pod, we have documented it on Twitter, etc. That we kind of knew.
Even prior to Mr. Hastings going down injured.
Absolutely, prior to Mr. Hastings, he was coming back for the All Black game. So I don't know where we are with it. I really think it's quite a mess. I don't know whether it's Tooney and Finn's way. They're having not a laugh, but they're trying to fox everyone.
Amazing.
Because really, it's the only thing I can think about. I can't imagine that an international coach and coaches and the Scottish Rugby Union could be this poor at communication and getting messages out.
Rewind what you've just said. Play that back to yourself, and then correct your statement, Craig.
We'll maybe have a discussion about that in Hands of the Rock, John. So yeah, I just think it's an absolute, just a mess, and it's just it's even to the point of all the fans and also the fact that now we're expecting to beat the All Blacks because Jesus has come back, and it's like the second coming of Russell, and it's third coming of Russell. And obviously he's the fourth. He's the fourth best scrum
fly half we have.
So people need to just wind it in a bit,
This is our Daryl Marfo moment, isn't it? But we've decided to invoke the spirit of Marfo, but by demoting Finn Russell to fourth choice, and we're bringing him in to see if we can get the same impact as Marfo for that burst of time. This was, again, Townsend's playing not 4D, he's playing 7D chess with this stuff.
I'll tell you what, if this is all a plan, he's a far smarter guy than I, because I don't get it.
No, I don't get it. I think the point you made, Craig, actually, when you were saying that, from a fan's perspective, right? So obviously Finn Russell's come back into camp now, and the debate this week has just been where will he come straight back in, will he play, etc., etc. Is Townsend? We've got certain sections of the fans saying Townsend is having another man management shocker by bringing Finn Russell in. It will completely undermine Blair Kinghorn's confidence by bringing Finn Russell into camp and then giving him 2 minutes at the end to punish him. Does that do anything? So there's really, it all boils down to, for me, this whole situation has been a mess. And the fans are the ones who've had to... It's overshadowed the whole of the autumn for us because of all the toings and throwings and will they, won't they. And we've had our fun with it and we've had good laughs about it, and but also I'm really angry about it because, again, I've said on Scrum of the Earth, and I've said on here, for me it's complete. The lack of honesty from our national coach it's evident. He isn't being honest when he says Finn Russell's not in form. And I get Finn Russell is probably quite difficult to work with, except every other coach he works with says he's fine and they enjoy working with him. There's just an issue here, and it just... it frustrates me. But so this week now has been Finn Russell's back. What is the back line this week, Craig? Do we now go Finn Russell 10, Blair Kinghorn 12, which has been mooted by a number of people, including Tom English does come under that banner at times.
I have to disagree. I do like Tom English, so I can't say anything. I have to disagree on that one. But a Scottish Rugby podcast without me disagreeing with you, John, is a boring podcast.
It's a bad night at the office.
Honestly. And this is with all the and this is from the leader of the cult and the drinker of
all the Kool-Aid here it is, yeah.
The chief Kool-Aid drinker. As I said to you last time, the last podcast, Blair Kinghorn's place in this squad right now is on the bench as a backup to Finn Russell. Yeah. Hastings. I loved the fact of Hastings getting his chance. I like the fact that I like how Hastings is playing, and I absolutely, but he's injured now, and the conversation has been moved away. He may start Blair Kinghorn against the All Blacks. I far prefer to see him on the bench because he gives you far more options at an international level. Whereas, because I'm not going to go down the route of Blair Kinghorn's a 15. That's the way it is, and this, that, and the other. And he's no a 10. He's no a 10. He's no a 10. He is a 10. He also played very, 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 very well at 15. He's almost a utility back, to use at Edinburgh. He's a 10. He plays incredibly well for Edinburgh, and he's an incredibly he performs incredibly well for Edinburgh in the way that Mike Blair coaches Edinburgh, and the way that Edinburgh play, and that's fantastic. The problem you have is he's now coming to a Townsend camp where, currently we don't really know what Townsend is doing with how they play, and so we need to have Finn Russell there, who will give a better, give us more options against the All Blacks, because if we play the way we've been played against the All Blacks, we're going to get a Wales thumping,
So coming on to that, I think if we show the All Blacks at the weekend, I think if we play the way we play at the weekend, we would be doing really well to come away having only conceded 55 points, because I think, especially in that first half, any team worth its salt wouldn't have been going in behind at half time, let's put it that way. Where the All Blacks would very much have punished Scotland's inaccuracy with all the glee that they often do. But I think it's fair. Like, Scotland fans are now, we're kind of it's now known as oh god, it's now known as a Wales thumping. I mean, the All Blacks have done that to other countries. It's just yous were in line there to get a Wales thumping. So,
well, it could be changed to a whumping.
A whumping, yeah, he's got a whumping. Oh,
yeah,
there
you go.
I like that. There you go. Right, so you got a whumping, and then if we get a doing this week, it's a scumping.
A scumping, there you go. Yeah,
there we go. Yeah, we'll run with this to the World Cup. There we go, sorted. I mean, I think Russell has to start has to start in our position, purely from a goal kicking perspective. Again, we can't have Blair Kinghorn kicking goals. That is just obvious. His touchline kick at the weekend was very, very good, very strong. Again, you've got that situation of the mentality of it. It's a pressure kick, against Australia. Harder kick, evidently at the weekend, probably a harder kick, but there's less pressure on you to nail that, because really you should be winning that game anyway. So, but then you're never going to get knowledge about a player as well. So that, I'm almost talking myself around on this, but you're never going to get to understand a player's mentality unless he's in those situations where he's got those pressure kicks. Now, I think Blair Kinghorn, by not kicking at club level, that probably completely ends the argument about him kicking at international level. You're never going to get experience of that pressure kick. Russell's now kicking at Racing. Nobody else is really a goal kicker within the squad necessarily. I know we've said George Horn has kicked, but you
actually have to have George Horn on the park first to.
Yeah. And to be fair, I mean, Ben White was pretty decent at the weekend. Wasn't decent. It wasn't too bad at all. So, but yeah, I mean, what realistically, Craig, right? Where are we ever going to beat the All Blacks anyway?
Up until the whumping, I thought we had a slight snifter of a chance, because they were playing terribly. And then all of a sudden they've come up here and they've just gone, oh, you think so? And just watching Ardi Sevilla play.
Oh, jeez, Louise.
What a player. Just unbelievable. And people like, I've been watching Dalton Papali'i for a long, long time since he first started for the Blues. And he is like, he's turning into a player that that you're not going to not want in an All Blacks jersey. He is absolutely fantastic as well. So, wow, what a backline!
It's
What a back
telling
row.
their back row. They've improved by not having Sam Cane there, and that in itself is a terrifying thought for anyone. The back row is going to be absolutely crucial, obviously, as it always is in these games. And as you say, New Zealand have got just athletes, incredible rugby players. There's a part of me that thinks the back row we finished the game with against Fiji is the back row we should go with. In that, I don't think Hamish Watson. I think he seems to be still carrying either a wee niggle or is just not really finding form. He's not quite as destructive as he has been in the past. I think Richie is a very, very competent fetcher. Obviously, started at 7 at Edinburgh as well, and Jack Dempsey was phenomenal when he came on. And I know people will go, John, you love a bit of Dempo, but I think he has started to show he does have an arrogance about him. He has a real swagger about him, and he can back it up with strength. The scrum started, like the way the scrum was going forward, I think the front row changes made a huge difference. But look at the body position of Jack Dempsey at the back of that scrum. And if you're ever interested in looking at scrummage positions, just watch those last few scrums for Scotland and drool at what Jack Dempsey's doing. It is pure powerhouse stuff. And I think he's absolutely crucial to start getting him game time, because I think, with the back row we've got available to us at the moment, I think Dempsey's in the mix as one of the starting three. I think it's also, and I'm not going to say the word on here, we'll save it for the Patreon, but it is a very, let's call it a nasty back row. If you go Ferguson, Richie, Dempsey, that is a nasty back row. Oh, Craig, are we about to get some Korean insight here? Is a kid going to run in the door behind you?
No, I think it's I think it's one of the dogs. So it's either Arthur or B, but the door's been shut, so I think their mum's back, so I think that's what the issue is. For me, it's a back row I've been wanting to see.
Yeah.
Not so much before anyone starts wailing on me. I'm not. I honestly did not think we needed Dempsey. I didn't think we needed him. I thought, and also what I would say is, if Magnus Bradbury was included in this squad, I think that would have, from what we can see out of him out of Bristol, his game has gone up a level as well for how hard he plays going forward. However, I will not take anything away from Dempsey. His game against Australia was quiet, and he was obviously just trying to find his feet because he really didn't look like the Dempsey that's played for Glasgow. But this one, either the back row were quiet for the first half, and when he came on, he was obviously going to make a difference, or just as you say, John, his level has gone up and he's showing his class now. And I'm happy to stand up and say, maybe I'm wrong. I've yet to be proven just yet.
Yep.
But maybe I'm wrong. So we'll wait and see. But yeah, I think, you're right about Hamish Watson. Hamish Watson's, ever since the Lions series is finished, he and he's been, now I'm going to say this, and I'm not starting a controversy here, but ever since he got his big contract from the SRU, he's just not fired. So I don't know what the story is. I think he needs game time at Edinburgh, to be honest with you. I think he needs more game time, and he's been. I think they've been. I think Hamish is bang on. He cut his mullet.
Yeah,
So
Hamish Allen here saying cut his mullet. Yeah.
So I think
Samson has lost his powers.
Samson has lost his powers, but I don't know. I think he's, I think what we're seeing is just a midlife crisis for Hamish. I think he'll come back to it, and I think he'll come back to his old self. We'll wait and see.
And I think it probably then just highlights as well, we are missing a couple of people in that back row as well. Obviously the main one being Rory Darge, who would, with Hamish Watson maybe not in a form, he would have been there or thereabouts in the discussions for that back row. Probably would have started one of the two games thus far. So, yeah, I mean it's a tough one, isn't it? But I think Watson is. I would like to see Watson on the bench at the weekend, and work around that as best we can, with a view that if one of the other back rows comes off, so start Fagerson, Dempsey, and Ritchie, and if Fagerson or Dempsey come off, Watson comes on, you move Ritchie, or you move one of them to the other position. And just manage it that way. I would like to see him just get 20 minutes off the bench, really just see if he can make that massive impact. I think the guys are actually, Alan McDonald's on the chat just now saying, are we paying the price for not letting him have the summer off? And I think there's an argument in that, Alan, and we did say it at the time.
I'm gutted with you using that comment and not using the atomic pun he's just dropped.
Oh, I know he has. Yeah, let's have a look. Taking Watson on the summer tour was a mistake. Oh,
bravo!
Yeah.
But I think I don't know, because I think what he was one of the highlights on the tour to Argentina. So he played very, very well. But I think he was looking for that. That he was looking, from all the reports that we're getting back, he was looking to go on tour because he wanted that experience. So we'll wait and see.
You do know yourself as well, though, and the guys are saying he's been well rested by Edinburgh, and that's fair enough. There is a different level of intensity when you're building up to internationals, but you know yourself, like sometimes your form does just cliff edge when you reach, you keep going, and then you reach that point of tiredness. Did have an injury at the Lions as well. He was carrying a groin injury, so maybe still a wee bit going on there, but we'll leave it there, because what we are going to do for our wonderful patrons, we will be back on Friday for our first OnlyFins of the season, because the prodigal son has returned, so it's time for me to get the OnlyFins account back out. So we'll be looking at, obviously we don't have squads at the moment, so we'll be looking at the sides and doing a proper preview of what we think the outcome will be. Before we finish up, I just want to touch on the again, Alan McDonald's watching tonight, so campaign to remember Siobhan Catigan, the ovation in the stadium on the 8th minute. This week, I was very, very heartened by it. There was a lot of people up clapping. The noise was amazing. Actually, it was starting to really swell. And again, it was really, really nice that a couple of people around us were asking, so what's the what's the deal with that, and what's going on? And then we had the funny comment of someone going, "You should shout. You should give the SRU a shout and get them to promote that on the big screen." It's like,
we'll be doing that.
Yeah, read the press, pal. But so I would again just want to put the shout out to everyone that's going along at the weekend. Massive opportunity to stand for Shibby. On the 8th minute, get yourself up and clapping, and let's make some noise and remember a wonderful, wonderful woman who gave her all for Scotland in that blue shirt. So looking forward to hopefully seeing that. I think a few people are talking about maybe getting banners and various things. We'll hopefully get lots of noise. If we can set off Alan's decibel alarm on his watch, that's a good goal. Just the final shout out before we finish, Alan. People have been utterly amazing with this rugby at its best. I have to agree, mate. It's been amazing to see the community at large really coming behind what is an amazing movement. And thanks again to Alan for all his amazing work with this. We will get that sorted again at the weekend. But
please,
go.
Just a wee thing, and it's maybe a lighter thing than what we've just been talking about.
No, that's okay. We can do light.
But nice to see Stuart McInally getting included into the Barbarians squad. But also a big shout out goes to the friend of the pod, Murray McCallum, who was also included into the Barbarians wider squad, and he's playing against Northampton Saints, I believe, for the Barbarians. Big shout out to Muzzer. He's needing a bit of a pick me up. So well done to him, and I hope he enjoys his time with the Barbarians.
And I would just want to say to anybody that thinks, any player currently that thinks, you know what, I could really use getting in that Barbarians team. You know who made that happen, guys, right? Because he came on here, we talked about his Barbarian socks. Look where he is now, right?
Exactly.
That's all I'm saying. So
I'm going to actually have. That's one thing I haven't talked to him about. Is I'll have to find out if he's what after that comment, what socks he's going to be wearing.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I must say, John, that this podcast, I never really thought we were going to be at the cutting edge of rugby, with a mixture of insider knowledge about certain people coming back into the squad for things, and also helping professional players get named in Barbarian squads. It's quite an honour and quite a thing for this podcast to be so cutting edge.
And you know what? I just want to thank all the fans out there who are making this happen for us. Couldn't do this without you guys. So, and actually, we've just saw another comment. Yes, absolutely. Final big shout out. Must go to Holly Davidson. World Cup final this weekend. She'll be the referee in charge. Amazing honour, an amazing referee, just wonderful referee to watch, and no more than she deserves. And I for one will be tuning in and watching that one. Promises to be a very good match, actually. So let's see how it goes.
Yeah, excited for the weekend. I think the Red Roses are going to be held to account a little bit more than they have been. So it's going to be exciting times. And Holly has been, for all the stick that referees come into, Holly Davidson is one of those referees that doesn't seem to get a lot of stick about things because she's very, very good. So really, really proud and happy that she's getting her chance on the world stage.
Yeah, just such a clear communicator, and that's what you ask for in a referee. If you can clearly communicate what you're doing, people are not going to have as many issues with you. So amazing, and we're going to ignore that comment from Anna there because that is dripping. Well, so nice to see a Scot at a World Cup final. Anna, tut. That is dripping because we talked about them getting a lumping. That is dripping. So anyway, right. So that's us for the free section. We're going to head off over to join our wonderful patrons and have a good chin wag about other things in the rugby world. I'm sure the same topics might come up in due course. But pleasure as always, Craig. And for now, it is goodbye from me and goodbye from yourself, Craig.
Thanks for all the comments and all the interaction, guys. It's been great.